on. I mean, it's up there, right? Oh, we are. Okay, we're gonna get started. It's 5:30. I was looking at that clock and why do we have two different times? I don't know, but the one on top, I think is the right one. So we're gonna start. It's 5:30. A couple people still signing in. We'll hold out for a second. I think we need to stand. Of course, then you don't, but then you stay behind the lectern. See, that's not a good thing either, right? See, right? No. I'm only going to be here 5 minutes, and then I'm turning it over. All right, I wanted to welcome you all back, and thank you for your courage in coming back. I know it's a huge commitment, but we have such a great group here. I received a number of emails. Some of you sent them to the district, and I think everybody was CC'd on those. Is that correct? Everybody got a copy of all the questions that several members have been posing. And I was wondering how we were going to address that, because we have this very tight agenda that I see anyway. Every single meeting is pretty packed with information and things we have to get done. So, but they're all very good questions though too. So it's not like these aren't relevant, important questions to the people who submitted them and to all of us as well. I read through them all in the packet and all the information, and I'm thinking these are good things. And I didn't know the answers to most of those questions that are being asked. So I contacted the district and said, how are you going to address this? So the commitment is every single question that is being asked is going to be answered, okay? Regardless of what, the issue is, it's all going to be answered. But when is the big question? Right now, if we took all the questions that were asked this last week and answered them right now, we wouldn't have time for anything else. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. These are all very meaty questions, and they're very important. But so the commitment is everything will be answered in time, okay? Submitting the questions ahead of time in email, I think that's great. I mean, how else do you get the detail out? We're not going to be able to do it here at the sidebars and, put something down in the last 5 minutes. I mean, these questions obviously took, the writers a long time to put them together. They're very well thought out in detail. So that's my proposal, is that that's how we handle it. Now, this is the time to talk about that, okay? Does everyone agree that's a good way to do that? Or are there other suggestions on how we should deal with questions that come up from the committee members? What do y'all think? Any thoughts?
Can I make a recommendation that it be all put in one giant Google Live doc where we can have questions from committee and then responses and or references to when the meeting and when the question was referred to? So there's a tracking of actually answering those like you would in an RFP submission and a follow-up RFP submission. Therefore, we're documenting that the questions are actually answered.
Response from the people who are going to be answering those questions. What do y'all think? Does that sound? Okay, so the committee members are agreeing, but who's going to be answering the questions? Do you agree with that? So yeah, sounds reasonable. Okay, so we have a yes. I mean, I like it. Anybody else have a thought on that? So everyone's on the same page? Okay, love it. All right, I'm done.
Veronica is not here, and you realize how much she does when she's not here. So yeah, I appreciate her very much. We have an agenda, and our first item is the facilities master plan. And Sergio, the director of facilities, and Erlindo, director of maintenance operations, will do the presentation. There's a lot of data too. We also have some hard copies of the presentation. We will spend about an hour on this first item. It's really, really important that we understand our facilities, and there were some of the questions that we have here, like why my school is not here, what was the process. We hope to answer that. There will be a time we will present it, and there will be breakdown in groups. so you can analyze the data and ask questions. So that's the first part. And then after that, we go through the enrollment history, and part of the enrollment history where we are declaring enrollment in the schools. That will be my part, and we will do the same thing. And then after that will be the inter-transfer and inter-transfer students, and we will do the same thing. Those are three heavy topics, and the demographics but we will dedicate time. This will be the foundation for the following meetings, and hopefully some of your questions that you asked that will be answered here. So Sergio, you are next. So we have a clicker. I don't know, you want me to do that or? And this presentation is in your package, so hopefully you that review. And the facilities master plan, the whole 400 pages is also in your report. So Sergio, this perfect.
So good afternoon, how's everybody? Perfect. So as everybody know, we had our facility master plan. This was a huge topic for the district because it was 6 years because we have 34 sites, right? We wanted to make sure that we give you the accurate information in all the needs of all the district through all our schools. Oh, that way? Oh, sorry. Oh, there you go, closer. Okay, perfect. So we'll start off. Okay, perfect. So we'll start off. So 2019, we took it to the board. The board approved the facility master plan. This was the first part. We actually hired 196 to be our partner to go through all our facilities. The first thing we did was our vision, right? We wanted to see where the district wanted to lead, because this facility plan is really important for us because it's gonna show not just the need of the schools, but also what we have to do for the next 15 to 20 years, right? So that's where we started off. 2020 to 2024, we started getting all the data, right? All the data from other schools. In this process, we included all our structural engineers, civil engineers, right? Which is plumbing, engineer, electrical engineer, HVAC engineer. So in this process, we went through all our sites. We also talked to our maintenance and operations. We talked to our principals. We actually went out to the site and say, what is the need at the schools, right, that we noticed. But we also wanted to go in the back end and say, okay, let's look at all the infrastructure, right? Because we like doing projects that you're able to look at, but the biggest problem is the infrastructure, like gas lines, sewer lines. So we wanted to make sure that we had all the data for you guys. From there, we went on 2025, December 22, we actually went to the board and presented the full facility master plan, opened up for questions and able to review the whole process. And now we're finalized with the facility master plan, and now we're going over it. Perfect. So just a little bit of what I just explained. We did the facility assessment through all the district, all the schools. From there, we went to an evaluation plan. We wanted to evaluate each school, right, on the needs, which is all the infrastructure, capacity, and a 360 portion of the whole school and the process. From there is, we based it off in 3 areas. Area 1, priority 1 projects, priority 2 projects, and priority 3 projects. So our objective was 4 objectives when we started the facility master plan, right? We wanted to see the equity base of our infrastructure and actually look at the full data 100% on what was the need for the schools, but at the same time, kind of planned out on portables, right? Where was the lifetime of portables? Where were we putting actually our money? And at the same time, kind of go from there and create a bigger plan, right? So that was our objective number 1. Objective number 2 is create an index where it will show you 100% every everything on our schools, which means facilities, the infrastructure, making sure that you guys, anyone that looked at the facility master plan was able to understand the high needs of our schools, right? When it was built, 100%, all the infrastructure on the schools. Objective number 3, right? It was where can we invest to actually hold the value of our assets, right? That's where what schools make sense for us to put the money in and make sure of on a 360 basis, right? Show our community like we have a huge need, $1.3 million, right? We do not have the money to actually fix everything on the schools. That we know 100%, right? So we wanted to see where can we actually upgrade our infrastructure. Objective number 4, right, is bigger projects like our Performing Arts Center, right? So we could have equity throughout our district and make sure that we're able to accommodate our community, but at the same time, it's something that is for our students to be able to have a big impact. Perfect. So this one is the district critical needs overview, right? We have a $1.3 billion needs through the whole district. 1.3, that's just in the infrastructure, right? Through the code cycles, right? For example, DSA, Design State Architects, now it's saying whenever you do a project in modernization, there's also a back end of 20% for passive travel. Passive travel is apart from the project, right? Passive travel is restrooms upgrade, ADA compliant, fire, life and safety, which is fire alarms. And that's when the $1.3 billion, it starts going higher and higher and higher, right? At the same time, every year, there's a percentage that it's a big impact because now materials are higher. The same thing is with the infrastructure, right? For example, like electrical switch gears, now it has a lead time of about 1.5 years. So all of this is a huge impact to the district, 100%. From there, we went and we actually looked at the biggest needs, which is elementary schools, right? Most of our schools on elementaries are older than 2000. That means the bigger need is there, right? At the same time is our high schools, which they're older. But the bigger picture that when I was looking at the facility master plan was we saw the need on the main structures, but we decided to buy all these portables to say, hey, you know what? We don't want to go through the state, get certification to actually certify the main building because anytime you touch a big building or a structural building, that means that you got to upgrade electrical, HVAC systems, and they never wanted to go through that route, right? So we got stuck with 400 portables. And now that's a huge problem because now those portables are past their lifetime and we have to pay all that money. So great idea when the superintendent came in, she's like, Sergio, this is a big problem, right? What can we do to actually save costs there so we could focus in our main buildings? So health and safety, that's our first set of priorities. That is all the fire alarms, ADA, passive travel, gas lines, HVAC, as you guys know, a lot of the AC, right? Most of our schools, it was never a problem because we never had hot days. Now, it's a big problem, right? So the biggest problem now that we see is if we're looking at a site, we're gonna add HVAC, we have to look at 3 phases, which is electrical, HVAC systems, right? And structural. Because if you're gonna do a bar unit, right, or you're gonna do a top unit, you have to look at the structure, you have to do a look at the electrical, and now that triggers the passive travel, which is your 20% more on that project. Next slide. So here, we put this pie chart together, and you can see all the needs in priority 1, priority 2. You have our elementaries, 36%. middle schools, 19.3, high schools, 23.1. Here where it says district others, that's maintenance and operations, transportation, and the rest of, the district.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Erlindo Fernandez, for those of you that don't know me. I'm the Maintenance and Operations Director. So here you're looking at Watsonville High. This is what you'll be seeing on those pamphlets you have. Watsonville High, where it's located, the year it was built, 1937. You got the APM number, you got the acreage that we cover at Watsonville High. That's how much we have to maintain there. Grades 9 through 12. Enrollment, you're looking at enrollment there too. Next slide. This is the needs at Watsonville High. We broke it down into priorities. Some of those needs have been taken care of on that priority 1 project. Some of those, like priority 2 projects, resurfaced tennis courts, demolished buildings and replaced with new classrooms. That's what we're looking at. Campus landscaping and perimeter fencing, priority 3. This pamphlet right here, what you're looking at, this slide is how they got ranked. As you can see, you know, the higher the number is, the worst shape that the schools are. If you look at it, you know, you got area fact, you know, number 2, that's pretty good. But then you go, you know, you start looking at the numbers where fields and play areas are number 10, that's critical, you know. So that's areas that we need to really work on. You see all the buildings, you know, they're at number 8, number 10. You know, structure, you know, everything's pretty high numbers. So, and this is due to the lack of maintaining the buildings in the past. So you're gonna see this throughout the sites. Obviously, we have a lot of homework to do here, and that's why we're here. So, next. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So here on the index, right, where you have structural, that is meaning your main building, right? That means that it's, for example, it's libraries, is your NPRs, is the structure that actually holds the whole building together, right? That's what we're actually looking at 100%. The building envelope, right, is the full package of all the schools on a 360, which is the building, path of travel, all the roofs. So it's pretty much the whole. And then we have indoor air quality, right? That's where it comes. HVAC systems, AC, on a 360 basis.
So here we have all the sites by name right here and how they rank. Obviously, it's the same thing here. Yeah, go ahead.
Are these categories all weighted the same? So air quality is the same equivalent as a site security, for instance?
Yeah, we based it on the same category or whatever.
Not blaming, I'm just putting some context to when you look at these numbers that you need to look beyond those numbers, because
And we also got to remember that we started this facility master plan way back then. So some of this information might be already outdated. So we got to keep that in mind as well. But yeah, basically here you're looking at the year the schools or sites were built. As you can see, a lot of our schools are fairly old. You're looking at attendance, capacity, what they have right now. And then you're looking back at the area factor and all that numbering system again. So it'll really tell you what ranking the school does As you can see on your far right over here, you got 64, 68. That's the ranking that we gave, or the architects kind of ranked that school on where it is on the, you know, the structure of it, or the structure of it. Thank you. This is a messy school. I guess, again, this is just a repeat of the first slide. Basically showing you, you know, the ranking on it. You got an 82, so it's a little bit worse than the other side, but yeah, this is what we're looking at. You're gonna see that throughout. The rest of the slides are almost the same function here, or the same, you know, they're just ranking, they're just being ranked on the different areas here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, can we maybe not go through each one by one? I think we can read those on our own and spend time in
Okay.
discussion.
Question as you go through these, how are you, if work is being done, how are you tracking the updates and the data on here that's no longer current, or if something's been moved from a 6 to a 2 or something like that? Because you've been doing work, it sounds like, over the last 4 or 5 years on some of these, right?
Yes, correct. We are currently working with the architect, and we're gonna have some updates on that soon, but yeah, right now, this is what we rendered, so we're gonna do the updates soon, working with the architects on that.
And most
Sorry,
of,
what's the timeline for that?
so right now, one of the things that we're doing is, as we're going through all the projects, we're actually taking them to the board. And all the projects that we're doing from while it was left from Measure L and continue with Measure M, they're actually on the board. And then from there, all that data, we're gonna transfer it, and then we're gonna update the whole facility master plan. So we wanted to see if we could do it in phases, right? So because our projects take from anywhere from 4 months to 8 months, so we wanna do it on a yearly basis.
I'm asking, when are we gonna see an updated plan?
Yeah, when will we, you're saying this is somewhat outdated, so when will we have more current, and are we planning on doing it?
So no, so this is,
I'm just making a correction. This is not outdated.
Okay,
This is current.
as of when?
2025.
2025.
So this, yeah.
And there's a lot of work that's in the pipeline to be done, but it hasn't been done. And those projects are not done overnight. Those projects have to, so you talk about, go to DSA. We have a project that they're working on right now, it's gonna go to DSA, it's gonna take 18 months. So it may have been approved by the board, but it's gonna take 18 months.
Maybe a list of projects that have been approved.
Correct.
Would be very helpful to us, so we know what's in the works.
We can provide what the board has approved,
Yeah.
and then for this next year. But this is I can tell you, there's not gonna be a lot of change in 1 year. Not a
So-
lot of change at all.
So we have an approved $80 million out of these projects that the board approved in December. So that's where we are working on right now, and we have a timeline. So at the end of this fiscal year, we sold those bonds. We had a cash on hand to work with that. Our bond was $350 million. We don't have the cash for that. We had to complete the work. The way the bond requires is you have to show the work and do the work. So we have clear projects, $80 million for these plans, and that on the board. And that is part of the bond oversight committee, and that's where we have those plans. And then also we need to probably advertise more and post that where the work is done. So I also want to say, like, we assume, I was noticed that everybody will have laptops to do this work, because we're going to give you this is just the start, and I want you to dig into the data. If you don't have a laptop or a computer, we had 12 Chromebooks. that you could have, access through through our internet. So if you don't have one, we will, provide you one right here. So I'm just gonna go to.
Excuse me, before you go on, just real quick, I just want to ask if I'm restating correctly. If the work was completed before the end of 2025, it's reflected in this presentation. Is that correct?
And one more thing, I'm sorry. What happens to work that is in process and we recommend to the board that a certain school needs to be closed and that school has work underway and money spent?
That's an excellent question. That's our dilemma. So as we go through these projects, you know, we have so many needs. We had to review that. So we're putting probably on pause on some of those items, and we might do that later because if we have a potential school, like, do we invest on that? So that's something that we have to we have like an internal conversation about that.
John and Bill, I was just asked to remind you that they can't hear you on YouTube when you're not speaking into the microphone.
Okay. Okay, let's keep continuing to this presentation because this is a working meeting, so we're gonna get you a lot to get to your data. So keep going. I think this. So we're gonna go to. Oh, I think that we go to.
So, okay, what you're looking at here is the priority 1, priority 2 needs. This is the elementary school, and this is what we have on those priority 1 and priority 2 needs. This is for middle school needs, priority 1 and priority 2s, and you, as you can see the numbers there, where we're at with that too as well. And then, of course, you got the high schools, priority 1 and 2s. Charter schools, we got those on there too. Operation, service and centers.
So at this point in time, if you have any, I know we asked questions throughout the presentation. We got like questions that we break down. Yes.
I had a question.
Uh-huh.
I was very specific in my email for this reason. I know that data is out of date, right? And we have a very important job to do, and that job is to decide what schools we're closing. I specifically asked for the work orders that are open, the work orders that are closed, and any facilities that have had student accidents, staff accidents for this reason, because we need to look at that real life data and decide what that looks like for our schools moving forward. I've also stated publicly that we cannot spend money on schools we are going to close. We cannot afford it. You just said that in 5 different ways. So can we get that information? And can we sleep better at night knowing we're making an informed decision with all the facts?
Chairman, is there a way to lease out properties that are ours to bring in revenue? So I don't wanna like completely sell, a school if we can lease it.
Yeah, okay. I will answer that question and then I will answer your question. So I did receive your email today, Ashley. You know, like when I got to the emails, I replied to it, but we will. It was actually, I think it was unfair to when you request the data and you asking us to bring it at this meeting. You know, like from today to within the same day. You know, I will have to. So it requires a lot of more time. So we could bring some data, and a lot of that information is part of the what I call is part of the labor and management. And I did not want to get into a lot into everybody from the public, you know, to have into to the data. So we could bring you the data for the future meeting, and we will answer some of the questions. I believe that's why Jan started a conversation that way, the way I was hearing. So yeah, and so that's the person. And then the other question, yes, we could list the facilities. It's part of the, it's called a 7-11 process, 7-11 committee. And we're gonna go through the board to request to create a committee. It's a completely different process. It's very specific, it's by education code, the way, the rules that we need to do that, like how we offer it, in the process that we go before to what a committee recommends, like listen and sell. So the answer is yes.
I'd like to second Ashley's motion to bring that data to the next meeting so that we can really see what work orders are outstanding and like a history of work orders, because I know of certain sites who have had septic issues all year long. And is that a this year thing? Does that go back to last year? And also things like safety and incident reports that get filed. Obviously, there's private information where we don't need to know the who, but like, are there consistent injuries that we keep seeing due to some gap or some issue with the facilities? So I do think that information is really important, and seeing, you know, are there sites that have a vast number of outstanding work orders that does it make sense to pause those? Does it make sense to rush those? So I really do hope that we can see that data at the next meeting.
Okay, there you go.
I want to interject. So at the beginning of the meeting, it's not working. Yeah, okay, it's back on. So at the beginning of the meeting, I wanted to address this, and I thought we did, and we had an agreement, and now we're kind of going in a different direction. So did I miss something? So yeah, so that's a time to speak up, so we can talk about that, because there's 30 of us in this room, and we all have different. I mean, we have the general consensus that we're working for the kids and the whole district, right? But in reality, some of us have more specialized interests than others, right? I mean, given, right? Of course. So if you have, you know, issues, then it may be great, okay, for everybody, but others may say, well, I'm not interested in that. I'm not picking on you. Your issues are great. I'm not saying they're not. But some of us may be rolling our eyes and go, oh my God, you know, I'm tired, I'm hungry. And the judge, no, or John, I'm not a judge anymore, you know, talked about, you know, this process. So we had the process of when do we ask those questions? How do we ask those questions? How do they get answered? And now we had an agreement, and now we're going in a different direction. So just speak up when at the time, and then, but the group has to have input, absolutely. So, you know.
John, I have a slightly different interpretation
Yeah,
of that.
okay.
So, yes, we agreed on a process. I think what I'm hearing though is, because what we didn't agree on is when you're gonna answer all those questions, right?
Right.
You said you were gonna get to it, and what I'm hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is this information would be appreciated sooner rather than later, not a month down the road. So how do we agree on how long it's gonna take to answer the questions?
That's a
Right.
tough one. I mean, yeah, that's a tough, that's on them to say, how soon can we come back with this information? And then when do we need it, okay? This is just an introduction. I mean, we're not talking about doing anything for a while, right? And we're just starting, and we know this is 2025 data that's going to be updated. Projects are in the works right now, and so we're gonna have more information, but it's pretty current information, but there are deficits, absolutely. And you folks being on site can point out those deficits. Wait a minute, the septic, what about this, and what about these other issues? So absolutely. So
perhaps
but when,
so perhaps I could propose to that table that's gonna help monitor
Yeah,
questions
ready.
and answers. Could we add a column that is a date by which you're committing to get it to us?
can you do that?
So I was just checking on that. We will present the data for the next item. You know, we probably present that into. Probably we'll post it if you want to see that, and we will present it for the next meeting. That's in two weeks. And this particular item, you know, we received the request. I didn't want to sound defensive, but you know, the request was today, and that's what I
Yeah, so in the interest of transparency, if we add a column that gives you the opportunity to say, I can get this to you in a month, or whatever that date might be, then we've got something to both hold you accountable, but also know when
Yeah.
we can expect that
We,
date.
we have the data, we will present the information, so.
Yeah, but
And
I'm
then
talking
we-
beyond this date, I'm talking about all the requests, right?
So that's a great process.
Can we
that
do a
you're-
fist of five to see if that's a good idea, that the group
Well,
agrees?
I'm gonna let me finish and then we can get there. So the important thing is that a lot of great questions, a lot of great process. This, again, I've said this over and over, this is a very transparent process. And questions come up that may come up in the first meeting, but really aren't gonna be addressed in the schedule that we put together until the 8th meeting, right? So yes, I want it today, but the reality is of the workload that we can get done, the process in which was put together to build upon steps of information so you can make intelligent decisions is not giving you it all right tonight, right? And in my opinion, is not fair to ask someone to say, I need it, I want it tomorrow and you need to figure it out. What I would say, and I would hope that you would put what you were saying is, they gotta go back and figure it out, right? So when you say, and I would have advised them not to say that, when they say, I'll get it to you in 2 weeks, that means that something else is not getting done. It's much better, have the information collected from you, they go back and say, okay, let's see how we can prioritize this, how we can make it happen for the committee, because as John said, there's 30 of you, right? And how do we get there? So again, I believe it's unfair to ask them to, when are you gonna get this done? Because we have a year-long process when you think of even afterwards. But again, all of this is important questions and information, but we gotta give them a little grace to get it done.
I'm not saying they can't have grace.
I
I'm
know.
saying, in my experience, if you don't agree to a timeline, that timeline can go on and on and on.
Can I interject again? These are all reasonable requests. And I'm looking to them to say, they're asking you questions, when can you answer? And they say, tomorrow, a week, whatever it is, and that's good. But, and let's all remember, you know, a little defensive on this side, a little defensive on that side. It's like, just forget about all that nonsense. It's like, you know, ask your question, they get an answer, and it's, you know, question authority, absolutely. Nothing wrong with that, okay?
John
But
Fry
just-
speaking here. Do you have already available data when Measure M was passed? Typically, a school district then takes that amount, which in this case is around $315 million. And people have mentioned that money going from that bond to schools that may end up closing. The question I have, typically a district will take that amount and allocate it to various schools of how they're gonna spend it. Have you done that type of allocation of the bond? I don't care where it's spent or whatever it is, but the bond amount allocated to the schools. Do you have that readily available?
Yes,
Okay.
and we have allocated 80 million so that 350,
Could
because
you
that,
please put that on your list of some time distributing that to everybody so they know
Yeah,
what
we-
school was planning to get what amount? And that's just all I'm asking.
yeah, we already had that information, it was
Thank you.
presented at our meeting, so we could add it to the document, so the answer to that one is yes. Okay. So, I think the next stop, is any other question, this topic?
Can I, a point of clarification? John, I just want to be clear, and I don't know if you were on that email thread or not. I was told that that information was irrelevant to the work that we were doing here, and it wasn't going to be provided, which is why I spoke up
Gotcha.
after the presentation.
that.
Because I like to give my colleagues the opportunity to
And
do
when
their
I-
work,
when-
absolutely,
And when I met with them,
yeah.
I was all inclusive. All the
Yeah.
questions gonna be answered, the commitment was yes.
Yeah, and
I saw
and
that email.
So long as that answer comes before we deliver our resolution or our proposal to the school board, I just, for myself, and I speak for my colleagues that are also CSEA representatives, we want to have the whole picture and the full picture, because that's important to
Full
us.
picture is important.
I think
Um,
anybody-
Can I,
Yes,
Yeah,
I think you
so
were
just
the-
want to clear up one little nuance there too. It's not just the bond measure money and information, it's really about active, engaged repairs and facility maintenance projects that are ongoing that are important, right? Air
That was
conditioners
the
go out,
commitment.
so, you know, like, we need to make sure that it's not just the bond report and the money that's 80 million, it's all current.
Yeah,
repairs.
once we have it, the other one, we need to get that data and prepare it for you. So we,
Can you clarify on, remaining lifetime? Do you have data on the remaining so for things that don't need to be fixed right now, do you have data on the remaining lifetime of those assets? Yeah, so, you know, if we've got a building or typically when you've got a piece of infrastructure, you know it's gonna last 50 years, and 50 years, you're gonna spend $100 million to update.
Yeah.
Right. Do we have that data in terms of remaining lifetime for?
I think
our
what
various-
you're asking is depreciation and
Yeah.
the book value. I think, yeah, I understand your question correctly. So if you go by that in our buildings, most of our buildings, due to the depreciation and the age, you know, you go by the book value, they don't have it's very little, only most of the new modernizations. So yeah, we have that as part of our assets that we track. We track every asset in the district, and the depreciation is in the financial statements. They're summarized. So we have the data that is many spreadsheets. I don't know, like, I think that's one question that I want to ask. That two questions, you know, let's practice our 5. Because I want to bring the information for the committee. Is that something that the
No.
committee wants to see, or that's
So can I clarify, because
Uh-huh.
I'm not asking what's on your books from a financial, what I'm asking is, over the next 40 years, what is this school gonna cost to keep open?
So if we
Right.
go back 3 slides to a school.
No, I need to get closer.
There we go. Keep going all the way to a school. Yeah, right there, okay. So the lower the number means it's the newer that it is. So if it's a 10, it's at the end of its life. If it's a 5, it's mid amount, right? And that's why you need to go through every one of these, and that's what they're gonna bring you through next, is to be looking at the schools and understanding individually what these things are. And that then tells you theoretically, right, so if it's a 2 now, we're not gonna put any money into it, but in 10 years, it's gonna be a 7, right? The 10's gonna get money and they're gonna go down to a 5.
Great, thank you, that answers my question.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more can you just explain portables for a moment in terms of what the district's view on portables is, how you're looking at it when you talk about capacity?
Portables are
Let's hold that. We have a section coming up on that where we can actually address portables.
the whole thing, the whole section. That's okay. Okay. Any other questions before we break down? Any other question? Okay. Thank you. Great question. So the next exercise is about you looking to that data. You're just looking at the facilities, right? Like, what will your recommendations? So let's break down in groups of 5. You need computers, and we did not want to print. We give you binders, and then we talk about there will be so much paper that we print. So we want to give you access to computers, and so you want to do it like a 1, 2, 3, 5, and all the ones get together, and then the 2s and the 3s. You want to do that? So let's do that.
I think you also have some
Uh-huh.
bigger items. Sergio, did you bring the bigger ones for people to look at?
Also, we have some hard copies there of the presentation, and the facilities master plan. The whole thing is also in the web page. So let's go break down in groups of 5 and start. Okay. So there's only 1, 2. So that's maybe this group of 4. So how about go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Does everybody understand the assignment?
No. Okay. So I need
We're
to go
gonna
ahead
we're
again.
gonna break up and go to each one. So
Yeah.
he's gonna be a one, I'm gonna be a one, and we're gonna be there available to answer your questions
Mhm.
as we sort of look through that and dig deeper into a school, rather than just flying by through them. Let's look at one school, talk about that school, see how it goes.
So Heather and Selene, they're like two, they are not in separate, so they just join another groups, okay? You join different groups. Okay, what is, somebody was missing?
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Sorry I was late today, but just based off of what you guys were talking about right now and what has happened since our last meeting, and I heard some of you talking about closing down schools. Now, I didn't sign up to be on this committee to close down schools, and I will do anything and everything in my power to come up with a solution or an idea to prevent that. I do know that there was talk all this whole time since our first meeting, plus the registered Pajaronian, people on Instagram and Facebook saying they're going to close down schools. Is that what we're really doing here? Because it was mentioned here, and going through these slides a little bit that I just did right now, it seems that the amount of students is what determines the amount of money that goes to each school, is my understanding. That's a little hard to go off of, only because of politics and the way the world is right now. People are leaving the country. So, you know, in 10 years, obviously we're not going to have the president anymore, but things could rise, right? So, as something to be sustainable, I mean, we have what we have right now. How can we sustain it without closing it down? Because things could look up. And the need of having schools accessible to all areas that we currently have, maybe plus more, might be needed. And I think that needs to be thought about and talked about, because, you know, if we're just going to cut schools down and we're talking about renting buildings out and everything like that, it's already like we've given up. At least that's what it sounds like to me. And, you know, I'm not a smart man. I don't think I am, but I'm coming in with just low understanding of a lot of this data. I'm an artist, so I'm just trying to understand more of what it is that we're actually doing here and what our real role is, because I've had multiple people come up to me too saying, hey, you should mention this, you should talk about this and this and this, but this meeting, obviously, you know, we have a set schedule of what we're gonna talk about, which is good, but how do we get the information we're getting outside of this meeting into here? Like, what would be that process? I don't know if we talked about that or not, so.
Can you hear me okay? The last meeting, I knew that this was coming only because I've been talking with people. So there's been a lot of hearsay, but the only thing that was brought up in the first meeting was merging schools. We didn't actually say the words, we are going to close a school, let alone multiple schools. We don't know how many schools. And I want to acknowledge that elephant in the room, that there's grief to that. There's a big elephant in this room, and the elephant is grief. And we're gonna feel anger, we're gonna feel sadness, we're gonna wanna bargain. I think that's what our committee is like. We actually have an opportunity to bargain, and you're here, and you can make a difference even as an artist. I'm feeling the same way. There's a lot of pretty incredibly intelligent people in this room, and there are some incredibly intelligent people that I know that I'm like, why aren't they on this committee? And you're here for a reason. Don't give up. And also, we're gonna have to go through a lot of emotions to come to acceptance, to move forward and figure this out together. And I appreciate that you said that, because it wasn't said the first meeting, and I think we have to like face reality and be like, this is what's happening in order to move forward. And leasing schools out can be a temporary solution. If there are more kids that come back into our district, we can take the school back. So there's a bunch of opportunity that we have to figure this out And I didn't like the wording a lot because it wasn't clear, but I think it is in the fact that we need to look at this in a way that is positive for our students and that is sustainable for them because they're worth it.
And that's why it's important to look at the whole, because, look, you know, and I've been listening very carefully. That's something I do, okay? Words are very important. And every single time it's been couched in, we're not talking about doing this, but if we had to do this sort of thing. So no one's ever come out and said, we're closing schools, and that's the big elephant. Is that on the table? Well, I would imagine it would be on something like this. Every committee that I've looked at from other districts, you know, they face that particular hard issue, you know. And what's more, you know, heart-wrenching than closing your school where your child goes or your neighborhood school, you know? Absolutely. That's gigantic, but that's why we're doing the process. That's why we're doing all this hard work. That's the last thing I think anybody in this room wants to do. Will that be something you all will have? I don't have to make a decision. I'm not a voting member, but is that something you folks will have to face? Absolutely. You know, how do you do that? But, you know, heartfelt comments that's going to be big. That's important because that's the reality of it. It's not just, you know, numbers and color charts and stuff. I mean, it's ripping people's hearts out. I mean, that's real, right? That's your work to do, you know. But, you know, what school do you close, right? If you're going to close a school, is it going to be your school? Wait a minute, hold it. We got to look at the whole picture here. If that happens, it better be a damn good reason for doing it, right? You better be sure that's the right decision. You know, which one, if you have to do that. Again, if, remember that big if? I'm putting an if. I don't know. I don't have any insight to this any more than you folks do. But if you have to do that, it better be for the right reasons and not because of somebody's special interest. I'm not saying you all have special interest, but, you know, somebody, you know, we all have, you know, closer to your heart, certain schools, right? And certain jobs and different positions and all that. So how do we stay impartial and neutral? How do you do that, right? Because this is emotional. This is going to be, you know, heartfelt if you have to make tough calls, you know. So staying as neutral as you can and not looking at one school or one issue. It's the whole big picture. Every single kid is important as the next one. You know, let's keep a focus on that. But these are good to put it out there. Put it out there, but then do the hard work because that's any big decisions are way down the road. I mean, this is just information gathering and having some faith in the system. And you all keep checking and balancing and asking authority questions. You know, nothing wrong with that.
Well, one last question, and then we go to breakdown, okay? Because we have a lot to do to cover the agenda.
And so I know Bill did mention it on day one. There was actually a chart. Do you close down a school? Do you merge a school? Do you rename it? Right? So I think that there's an opportunity here in the process of how it was laid out, where I don't think everyone really understands revenue, how people are getting paid. It's not how many students are enrolled, it's how many people show up, right? So there's a lot of realities to where we're at and where we're gonna be at and the amount of schools that we have. And the question is, how do we do that thoughtfully? How do we do that with empathy? How do we do that with time so people can transition and make changes and make life decisions? You know, there's a lot there, and it's not just a today, tomorrow, it's a process. So the kinder we do it, the more empathetic and thoughtful we do it, the more we do it together as a community, the more likely it's gonna be accepted by the community, so.
So let's spend the next 15 minutes in the groups. So to answer the question, just review the data that was presented to you, what is in the plan, and just come with your own conclusions. You know, you're looking at the facilities only, right? We're gonna throw you a lot of data. The next one will be like the enrollment history, but right now it's just like, think about it like it is where your buildings, it is where your what will you do? This is just from the facilities perspective only. So that's the breakdown in the group.
And this is opportunity. Not everybody feels comfortable, but this is opportunity. Not everybody feels comfortable with that committee, but in a small group, every question is a good question. There's not a bad question. If you think I'm thinking it, I guarantee you 10 other people in this room are thinking it, right? And so what we want to do is have that opportunity for everybody to ask a question, whether they feel like they want to do it in front of the whole group or not. Hopefully we can do that in the small groups.
So I think we break it down, and then we come back, and then we try to summarize what was discussed, okay, in the group. So just break down in,
So which one?
yeah.
One will be
be outside getting some nice air and.
Okay. So I'll let you guys decide how you break down. Thank you.
leave.
So you got
right here, one out there, two right here, three over here.
10 minutes for this exercise.
Over there.
10 minutes.
2, 3, 4, 5.
10 minutes for this exercise and we come back in 5. Okay.
Okay, pick a group. Go find them. You got group 2, you got group 3. I got group 1.
Okay. So group 3. I actually.
Love you guys.
All right.
I have group 3.
You're with Ashley.
Really?
No, she's one. She knows they already got somebody there.
Group 1? Couple more group 1s? Where's the bigger hitter guy? Right here.
It's time to be back. Time to be back.
Perfect timing, thank you.
It's time to get back. Okay. I think people have very similar questions.
Okay, everybody, we're coming back.
We're coming back. Yeah, you want to come back here? You stay here. This is your presentation. Wait. Did you stay here or here? Okay.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the questions I got to.
Yeah.
So I think
I
we're gonna
think,
send it to them so they
yeah.
can actually understand it better.
They're gonna ask them to record it.
Yeah.
Somebody record it.
Okay. Let's go back. Let's catch up some time. Okay. Let's talk about let's spend 1 minute each group talking about what did you report? What were your questions? Group one. Somebody from group one report.
Group one. So I think I'm already hearing from other groups that they're gonna have the same question, and it's basically defining what each column in each index means, because some of those things are kind of like you can figure out just by reading it, but other things you're like, how are they defining this?
Perfect question. I went around 2-3 groups, and I hear the same thing. So we're gonna have you that information. It's actually in the whole facilities master plan. It's over 400 pages, and it's in the back, the definitions. But we will bring that to we will show that for the committee too, so that's clear what that means. Because what I'm hearing is one of these things more valuable than other for the architect, but not for us, for the committee, so we will explain that, each item. And how about group number 2?
So we had a couple different things, certainly that was one of our topics.
Okay.
One was to make sure we were clear that this is about the use of the bonds and the needs for that money. This is not regular maintenance and repair. So if something's wrong, we just wanted to clarify, if something's wrong with the school today, it has to get repaired and get fixed. It's not an investment that would show up in here. So somebody mentioned septic earlier. So if the septic system is bad today at a particular school, it needs to get fixed, right? And so there's this difference, just to make sure we're apples and oranges, between current repairs and maintenance versus the investment repairs and maintenance.
100%. One we call the facilities, another one is maintenance and operations. So the facilities is part of the what we call capital assets, the maintenance. And there's an emergency when the flood happened. We have to do it, right? That's another the deferred maintenance. What we call it as the deferred maintenance is part of the maintenance and operations. Yeah. You want to say something? Okay.
Sorry, there was one other thing that we wanted to check on too, and that had to do with the age of the schools. So you're looking at a newer school that might have something rated as an 8 to a 10, and an even older school that has that same rating. But what we understood, I think, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is if HVAC is broken, it's broken. If it's a 25-year-old school and the HVAC is broken, it's broken. If it's a 50-year-old school and it's broken, it's broken. So you can have a newer school that has the same poor or good rating as an older school.
Yeah, we all as the expert in this area, yes, that would be like, especially the infrastructure like the AC. Yeah. And group number 3?
Yeah, we had a couple findings. One was I wrote down for Pajaro Middle School, like, what the heck? Is that pre-flood or post-flood? Seeing some of those scores that high was almost like pretty shocking. Then we also wanted to know, like, where would we find some of the underground issues there? And maybe the legend helps with that, but like sites that have septic issues, where in the key would we see those? And then also, it just seems like our fields and play areas are really scoring high across the board. And so I'd like to know a little bit of like what constitutes a low score. Is it because it's easy to maintain, because it's well maintained? Is a high score because kids are out rolling their ankles or there's septic issues in the field? Like obviously that's a high score, but just a little bit of understanding of kind of what constitutes high versus low scores in some of these areas.
Okay, I think it's 4, you're gonna 4, somebody from 4?
Yeah, I'm going to use program adequacy as our example, maybe, where we agree we need definitions for all these categories, but also that it's really important that we align on the process that we're here for. And what we talked a little bit about is, well, in reality, we're here as an opportunity to, if we agree that we're here as an opportunity to define what the ideal school and ultimately school district looks like, how many cohorts and how many students do you want in a school, then we start with that, and then we understand what the facilities are that we have that can meet those needs. And the reason that process is important to understand is because if that's where we're starting, then something like program adequacy becomes totally irrelevant, right? Because if you're changing what that school is being used for, it's now going to be a K through 5, and it's going to have 3 TK classes that each need a bathroom. It may no longer have a high adequacy score for that need, right? And so it just goes back to the process piece.
Okay, and
Did I
somebody
capture
from
that?
5, let's go from somebody from this side, from 5.
We talked a lot about enrollment, and how that has to do with just, maybe even like birth rates. Like, is it just people are having less children? Is it they're moving out of the area, all that kind of stuff? And so that was part of our question. We
That's
also.
that's the next topic.
Mhm.
That's the
And
next
then, we also did talk about defining those.
Okay. There's a
I don't know if
theme.
I'm missing anything, but.
There's a thing. I think I remember like at the first meeting, we talked about it, like we know some terminology and but we need to be very clear that everybody understands that. So we will put the definitions for everybody. So we have it, but we will. Okay, it's inside there. It's towards the very end. Okay, so the next topic is the enrollment projections. We're gonna try to catch us on some time, and because we're gonna break down in groups too. Could you put an Excel spreadsheet here? So it's in your packets, in your computers. Yeah, you are done. So this is the enrollment projection. So this is the. Please spend some time in this area. Go back to the bottom. So this is. There's a history back from 2019, from very low. Go back, right? So 910. For the purpose, I was trying to simplify it for this group. We, in the schools, right now, we're looking a lot pre-COVID versus COVID. So since COVID happened, the schools were shut down March 3rd in 2020. That's when we thought we were gonna be closed down by 1 or 2 weeks, and they got closed for that year and the following year. So I looking at it from that perspective. I'm not gonna go through the report. You have the report there. I'm gonna summarize that as a total. Since COVID, we have lost 3,001 students district-wide. What does that mean? If you think about it, that's equivalent to 7 schools. These are the 7 schools. Okay, I'm off by two students. But this is, I want to be clear, I'm not recommending these are the schools that we will consolidate close. This is an alpha, this from the, so it's equivalent to that. Or you will think about it, there will be our largest high school and 2 middle schools. That's how much enrollment we have lost since that. Regarding the wide enrollment, the biggest, you look at this data, what is very clear is our trend, our kindergarteners, we just have a lot lower bill rates. You know, there's a lot less students coming into our system. And what that means is, yes, we will continue have declining enrollment because less students coming in. So let's go to the elementary section. So that's as a district as a whole. And then we go to the very bottom. And there's another, this is, especially you look at the same term, you look at the elementary school, that is 1,622. And then just go to the middle. And then you look at the middle high schools, we have 867 students. And then just go to the high school, the bottom. So we have 428, but in the last 4 years, 617. Go to the other schools. And that is part of that in this section, that includes the charter schools and the alternative schools. I make a little note right here because this is during COVID, why the increase. So the district created the virtual academy, and that's why the increase for the alternative schools, but overall, it's still a decrease. You have the enrollment, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the report. You have the enrollment history in your package. We're going to break down again. Let's break down in the same groups and look at the report and what conclusions will you make. I would recommend you look at elementary, middle, and high school without breakdown. Just look at the history. What does it tell you? You could go farther than that. I just went through just to show you that I don't need to go back all the way back to show you our declining enrollment. If you go back, it's even worse. I just took it through COVID. So let's break down, and I want to give you a little bit more time to discuss. So we have 15 minutes to look at the data. It's
called 3-year intra-district
No, that one. It's called enrollment.
Oh.
Enrollment history, and it's a PDF file in the computer, in the file. On the website. Is there any question?
Yeah, what I think is probably happening is maybe we're all trying to find what's on your screen right now. And since you uploaded it as a PDF,
exactly.
I guarantee only one tab got uploaded, and so we all can't find that specific tab. That's the...
No. This whole report is in PDF in a lot more detail. I just summarize enrollment projections. So this presentation, these slides are not in your package. You have more data in the package than this. So it's called enrollment history. That's what is included in that. Let me find it to you on one of your screens. You find it? It's enrollment history. That information that you have is in here. I just break it down for the convenience, so speed up the meeting. I will, let's break down in groups, and I will show you exactly what it is in the website. Okay, let's break down again, 15 minutes. Oh yeah, go to the website.
Okay, 1 is out there, 2, 3, 4, 5, where you were again.
15 minutes.
15 minutes is a lot. I'm not gonna get to anything else.
Okay, let's do 10 minutes then.
10 minutes.
10 minutes, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay, I show you what the... It's time.
Early turn to Aaron.
It's time. Let's go back. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, your yes. No, they are there. Yeah. I check like that. Everybody's go back. So let's go. We group 5 now. From 5 to 1. If somebody else will just somebody from group 5 report, and then we go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just to go the opposite. So what are you? You know what? By the way, I went around. I love the engagement. It was really good, and we're really getting into the data, into the numbers, and you were asking great questions. So please report. This group 5. What's group 5? Somebody from group 5.
Not a question per se, but,
Or comment.
were we supposed to consider the MGT projections or just look at the enrollment history in general?
So this is the enrollment history. We're gonna also look at the projections too next.
Okay, so I read a chapter ahead. My apologies.
It's okay.
Hopefully I don't lose any grades for that.
But it's included in the package. So, but we thought about it.
Yeah.
You understand the history where we are, and then the next one is the projections, because it will help you understand why the projections are looking at the history.
Sure, yeah. I just want to emphasize, there's, in these sheets and in the report itself, it's kind of hard to see, but the distributions for the decline, which is prevalent, right? We're not saying there are, anything except Watsonville High has lost students, right, in general, across the board. And so when people look at these declines, they look at the overall number for the district, they look at overall number for elementary schools and junior and all this stuff. It is not uniformly distributed, right?
Exactly.
It is not uniformly distributed, and it makes no assumptions of where that decline is coming from, right? And hope to see how that is reflected in the MGT report that we will discuss.
And group number 4.
We talked about a request for information for student population and school zones. We could see a map of both of those. And then we also, we talked about again, going back to what's the reference point of an ideal school? What does that look like for the kids? And just, starting with students first, what does it look like for an ideal school where our students can thrive the most? If we can have that model first, then we can see how many kids, fit in these model schools that we have set up, and then if the schools that are extra or left over, then we can look at those closing or leasing out. So it's like, what does the model school look like? And anything else?
I'm gonna ask, by the perspective of FICA, so are you asking us that you look at the model school, because that's coming up, but are you asking, the community is asking that we see the, we accelerate that first, then we're looking at the data? Is that what it is? Is that a question?
What are we looking at? What are you asking that we're asking them?
Did we review the model schools first, before we do other things. So like our agenda will change that we have
I think
planned.
it might help to have that as a reference point, yeah.
The issue was if you have a model school and if that's where you start, then you go to look at the enrollment. And what number of schools do you fill with the model? Or you go the other way and you look at numbers and you say, okay, we just spread them around, but maybe it's not going to meet the model that people are really wanting, who are teachers, to be teaching in the school with. So the question, our group decided, didn't make any decision, is an exchange of information of where a model fits into this game versus where the numbers fit into the game.
Okay.
And that's, we're just learning tonight, what you have.
Okay, so anybody wants to see like 5, or they want us to look into that? Like, you want us to review the model school, like kind of
Can I
like,
get a point of clarification though?
yeah, yes.
So when will this group start to make any sort of decisions or, putting things together? Right now, it's just information.
Yeah, so like everything we spent, like the first 2 months, it was about like, it was information, and then when we always say, when is it like in in the third month?
The answer is,
You can speak up,
you have to have
Bill.
the information to about 3 months. You have to have the information to be able to make the plans. And the program model is not decided by the district. It's really, when we think about, we're gonna talk about cohorts next, teaching models and a variety of other things, about what Pajaro, not anybody else, can afford and can put together with the schools that you currently have. Right? So we're not gonna come up and say, here's what you should do. Right? Because it has to be made specifically for this district. It is not Santa Cruz City, it's not Monterey Peninsula, because everybody is unique. And you have to put it together for the uniqueness of it, which takes time and effort, which is why this is such a darn long process.
I just wanted to react to his question, which is, I wouldn't say that the optimal school, or district is, I think it's fine where it is in the agenda or in the calendar.
Okay.
I don't know that we were asking you to move it up. We were just asking for a definition of what process we're following. And so right now, we understand we're learning, but also, right, going back to what's the process that gets us to recommendations.
So before you make any decisions, you're gonna have all of the information about the schools, what they're all about, and information about the optimal school.
And can I say, in hearing what you were saying, as a teacher, we need to be culturally responsive in our lessons. So what I'm hearing you say is, in our area, in our local area, we're going to be culturally responsive in what that optimal school looks like.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so group number 3?
I was in group number 3, so a couple findings that we had was, we noticed that Watsonville High School is the only traditional school that had experienced growth. Other than our district charters and alternatives, we noticed some growth there. COVID seems to have really slammed Lakeview and some of the feeder schools. We're looking at like the numbers for McQuitty and Ansoldo, and we were wondering what's behind that. Like, were there any apartments that closed, migration patterns changing, companies closing? Like, what's behind that exodus? Because in the data you see, like, COVID hit all of our school sites. And with that jump from the 1920 to the 2021 school year, you see every school site get hit. But then you also see some schools who are still declining, but in a more stable way. And then you see schools that just continue to decline. So kind of getting behind that. And then also to the point of like the optimal school, the teacher in me is screaming that at the next meeting, it would be good to have a little bit of front loading and grounding and not go through the entire process, but give us a little dose of that grounding. So you're front loading us so that as we're looking at the data, we do have that in mind. Because if we wait too long, that data is going to go right back out because we're going to then start to reframe. So if there can be a grounding at the next meeting, I do think that would benefit us in digesting the data.
Okay, thank you. Were you going to say something? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jan. Group number 2? Somebody from two?
I think it was much the same as what the others have said. And I think the only thing I didn't hear mentioned so far is, as we look at the declines, there are multiple factors. And understanding what those factors are and the relative weight of each of those. So somebody mentioned something I hadn't thought of at all, and it had to do with rent stabilization in a certain area, and that could impact the movement of kids in the different schools. So there are things that some of us might not have thought of that are impactful. It might vary by particular school. And the other is the relative weight. If you see understanding the impact by school, if you lose 50 students at a school of 200 students, it's very different than 100 students at 1,000. And so, you know, it's really hard to be standing with the laptops and really ingesting all of that. So time for us to go through that and think about that's going to be
I know it was
critical.
a short period of time, and we had the data to digest more, so, yeah. Yes, Bruno.
One thing that just another member from our group shared is maybe in the future when we do break out into groups, if each group can have like a defined, hey, here's the schools you're looking at, or here's the areas, so that we're not all coming here and be like, wow, Watsonville High is the school that's experiencing growth. So a little bit of defined roles in the group. And that could even help if there's homework in between sessions where we know, hey, I want to talk to teachers from this school site and get their thoughts and opinions, a little bit more front loading.
See, that's a great teacher on you, yeah, okay. Right, so, group number one.
Homework, Brandon. I don't even have time to go to the bathroom, like, sheesh. No, I appreciate you. We had a really good conversation. We spoke on, other school districts and how other school districts are not experiencing declining enrollment. However, statewide, there are school districts that are, very similarly experiencing what we are experiencing. So we want to be like the ones that are inclining in enrollment and have beautiful budgets. We spoke to the very recent merger of Lakeview Middle School and Pajaro Middle School, and we wanted to very much pick that apart and look at how that looked like at a numbers level, because even though they didn't fully cut down classified staff, which is what we know is going to happen if we do merge schools, we want to look at how much that cost, right? Because that number there was a very beautiful middle school number, right? With two schools together. So we really want to look at that. And we want those data points kind of similar to what other groups are saying, like in front of our faces, so we can really look at that data and dive deep as a smaller group into very focused conversation. Thank you.
Can I just make a clarification on that data point? Can that include you sharing these files with us as Excels, not just PDFs? Because it does make it a lot easier to look at the data for some of us.
Okay, we will look into that, okay. So, I had to look into that because that's how we need to figure out how to do that in the web page. In Excel PDF is a different, I have to figure out how to do that. Okay, the next, thank you everybody, so great input. The next portion, that's you, Peggy. So that's the slide presentation, the intra-district, and so she has 15 minutes, you can do that. I know we took longer on some items, but I think it was really important to discuss that thing. So Peggy, that's your.
Awesome. I could probably do it. Do I have to be closer over there? Okay, I will. Thank you. Hi, I'm Peggy Pugh. Nice to see you all. And thank you all for your time and energy. I know it's not easy, so I'm going to do my best to keep you moving along and thinking about this. This may be a little less challenging as long as I do my job of giving you some good front loading. So thank you, Brandon, for the reminder. So what we're looking at are intra-district and inter-district transfers. And so I'm gonna skip the next couple slides, just to, in the interest of time. So intra, that phrase is all about movement within the district, so allowing families to have some choice. And so that's what that phrase, intra, within the district, you go to one school in the district and then you go to another school within the district. I'm gonna teach you how to read each of these slides. I'm not gonna go through them deeply so that you have a few minutes to talk. And maybe instead of moving to save us some time, let's just do some elbow partners, okay? And we'll just do some next to each other work, okay? So this first slide, elementary, you're gonna see, take my Madonna rig to go. This first slide, how you read this shows you in a bar graph form, but also in a numeric form. Same information, but people have different ways of being able to digest it. So blue is 23-24 school year, red is 24-25, and yellow is 25-26. And then over here, same thing in the columns 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26. Yep. So intra, this is the number of students who are at a MESTI in 23-24 as an intra. They left another school and they went to a MESTI, it's 118 of them. So that is this series of slides, how you read that. Questions on how you read this series of slides. Okie dokie. Middle school, same thing. High school. This, whoopsie, there we go. This is one a little bit more complicated, so I want to walk you through it. And on this slide, there's a little more information, actually a lot of different information. And on only one of these slides did I give you the definitions, but you can come back to that one to look at all the other ones. So this is looking at elementary intras in the 23-24 school year. One thing I should tell you is that for all of 3 of those school years, 23, 24, and 25, we used one single day in the school year. It's known as our census day. That's the day that we report all of our enrollment information, et cetera, to our state reporting system that's called CalPads, so that we didn't randomly choose one day in the fall in the 23 school year, one day in the winter in 24, 25. We tried to keep it apples to apples, so we used our census day date. So how you read this is in a variety of ways. We'll start with a MESTI. In 2023, this column, total enrollment attending the school, is columns. This is the number of students that live within the boundaries. At a MESTI, 290 students lived within the MESTI boundary in that school year. 22 students attended a MESTI, but their home school would have been Ansoldo. So I'm going to start walking across now. 15 students attended a MESTI, but their home school was Bradley. Okay? This is complicated. I had to read this one a couple times. Then, when you look all the way over to the right, you'll see that the total enrollment that year of a MESTI was 408. So that school year on census day, 408 students were going to school there. If I look all the way down in a MESTI's column, 391 students. So following this, the number of students that live within the boundary. So 391 students live within a MESTI's boundary, but some of them went other places. So these numbers are not going to be exactly the same because there's movement. Questions on how to read this slide? This one takes a little bit of work. And so on the packets that we have for you, I included this one with the instruction or the labels. I didn't put that on all of them. And so you can always just go back to elementary in 2023. Yes?
Just from my understanding, so the total number of students is 391 that are supposed to go to a MESTI. They're
Yes.
supposed to go, but then going across 408 were there.
408 were attending because all of those students from those other schools had joined that school community.
Oh, I see, okay.
So
So-
the total enrollment is 408.
So when the total number exceeds the total that's supposed to go, is that good or is that bad?
It's neither. And so the reason you're looking at intra, thank you for that question, it's a good one. It's just a note, because one of the things that you'll start to be thinking about is there natural movement that's already happening throughout the school district? Are there school communities where some people are choosing to go to other places? So that's, I was asked to provide that, I think, just so you really can see a full picture, not just slices. Mads, I think your hand was up, and then, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I had three questions. I think they're relatively quick. I assume you don't have data on the number of transfers that are declined every year, that don't actually happen?
Intra?
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be a decline, it would just be whether or not they met the deadlines and the school was able to accommodate it.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, to sort of to the good or bad question, things like, do you have any qualitative information in terms of the why on that? So like special education, and does special education count as an intra?
No, it doesn't count as an intra. So this is based on the students or the families who request to go to a certain school. Sometimes it's because a parent works there. Sometimes it's closer to a parent's place of business. There's a lot of reasons for it.
So if a student with special needs lives within a MESD but goes to Bradley,
They would be counted in Bradley's total enrollment,
but
not as an intra.
they would be counted as living in a MESD.
They would be counted if they go to a MESD.
No, if they live in a MESD but go to Bradley because of special
They would be
ed.
They would be counted as Bradley's.
Or would they be counted as living in a MESD's area?
That's a great
Because then
question.
they are an intra.
Yeah, but we're not counting them as intras. But I
You are counting them
I
as
can
intras
cross-check
based off
that
of-
though. Yeah, I can cross-check it and put a
Yeah.
little disclaimer back into the.
Well, yeah, and so I guess
in
that
the
just
slide.
comes back to the
Yeah.
good or bad piece in terms of qualitative data.
Okay.
Matt, so they would count as this, they wouldn't be reflected really in here, they would count as the total population of the school, and they're not really an intra, like these are reflecting so when you see the numbers like the 22, the 15, the 11, those are intra numbers because there was a request made. When you see the whole number, like the 408, 463, that's the total population of the school. For special education students, they're just students that are in a program. They're part of the total population of the school.
So
And-
they're not included in the bar below?
Yeah, they're
the
not counted as an
391,
intra.
They're not.
Yeah.
I'm not asking about
They're-
intra, I'm asking about the total below.
They're
not
in the
that number.
total. They're in the yeah. They are in the total population of the school.
So if I can interject, the total, if we look at Amnesty, the total's 391. So if I sum that first column, you get 290 plus the individuals comes to 391. But these are only intras. So if there are any other students who are inters, then defining this bottom row as students living within the school boundary is actually not correct. It's intra only. There are other students that must live within the school boundary, so that's not really the total of the number of students within the school boundary. Does that make sense?
Yes. And so for students who are in a special education program who attend a school, the way we count them is just they are part of that school population, even if they don't live within that school boundary.
Okay, but if you have a student,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
understand, but if you have,
Inters.
if
Mhm.
you have a student who lives in the Amnesty area, Amnesty, sorry, and they're an inter, they leave the district, they still should be reflected in that total number of students that live within the school's boundaries, shouldn't they?
That'll be another report.
But this is not really the total number of students that live within the school's boundaries, it's the total number of intra students that live within the school boundaries.
And I can go back to our tech department. Yeah.
I think it's still.
Yeah, so I'll come back with some, a little bit more defined, exact, I hear your questions, for sure hear your questions, and I can bring that back, or what I can do, let's practice our fist to five. What I could do is put a little bit of a definition in the slide post this, right? We can work on some definition, and then have it put in the slides, and then re-upload a new PDF, just so it's there, and that way you're not having to like, oh, here comes the new one. Yeah, Ms. Bailey?
I think I want to clarify that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this is only intra data. This is not enrollment data, correct?
Correct.
So I think that perhaps there's a confusion about that.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that I make it more clear by putting some definitions in here into the actual slides themselves, okay? We're gonna move ahead so I can show you, so you're in a series of these slides. There we go. So enter students coming to PVUSD from other districts, that's what's next. So they live somewhere else and are coming here for a variety of reasons. And so you see on this slide, you've seen how this is represented. This is very familiar. So these are the number of students coming to our schools in those school years. Maybe you can advance it. There we go. And then students who reside in PVUSD but are attending other districts. So these are students who live here, should be in a PVUSD school, but are going out. So you'll see here that this data is looking a little bit different. One, the numbers are quite high, and then two, what I have discovered through this process is the need for a more uniform tracking mechanism, and I've already engaged with our technology department. So you probably noticed, like, well, what happened to all those bars? That was my first noticing as well. And so I've already engaged with our CTO, Misty Roten, to start talking about much better ways for us to track this. So I anticipate that'll be coming. So in 25-26, so the current school year, 498 students who reside in the PVUSD boundary, attending other districts, and 549 attending alternative education programs through the County Office of Education. That's for this school year. And then just another way to look at that, including where they are going.
Can I point something out on the last slide, please?
Sure.
I know that this is difficult for all of us, and I know that I believe Paul shared that, you know, we don't want to close schools, and where can we get better at? This is an area where we need to get better at, particularly with our students attending alternative schools. I know my colleagues from Renaissance and New Schools would see this slide, and they could probably tell you a ton of ways that we can fix those numbers. I believe the county really promotes their alternative ed programs a lot better than we do, and I'm not gonna get on my soapbox and get critical, even though I kind of just did, but we need to fix those numbers.
I agree with you, and more importantly, our comprehensive high schools need to see this. Before selecting an alternative school, our comprehensive high schools, we need to provide more support for our comprehensive high schools to keep more of our students. That's the reality. And so it's both, right?
Homeschoolers and private school kids, are they reflected?
Not private school, other than if they on one of the slides where they reside in PVUSD, but they attend a private school, that's how they would show up. But I didn't provide any of the private school data. And then homeschool, when they homeschool, they have to homeschool through a program. Often that is through our County Office of Education, so it could be showing up there, but largely those are high school students with a smattering of some middle school students. Okay, and so I want to be respectful of time.
Yeah, this time, I want to ask, you okay staying 5 more minutes, or we are done? You okay, 5 more minutes so we can finish? So 5 more minutes, okay. So keep it, so whatever you want to do.
Well, the only thing to do is you were going to have a chance to talk with your partner. So we can do 5 minutes of partner discussion if you would like, but we could practice our fist to 5. I heard a couple of grumblings with 5 more minutes. So if you'd like to stay 5 minutes, you put up a 5. If you'd like to stay 4 minutes, you put up a 4, 3, 2, 1, and choose your one finger carefully, please. All right, I see some 2s, some 5s. All right, we'll go for 5.
So,
Start your timer.
well, let's spend 2 minutes talking with your able partner, and then we can make some comments, okay? We have a lot to learn, so yes, 2 minutes. Mhm.
A little less than a minute. You're at 55 seconds.
So it's 2 minutes now, so. Anybody wants to report? Any comments? We have 2 minutes to finalize. Anybody wants to make any?
Any final remarks? I appreciate the questions. We'll make sure that I use the slides to communicate. So I'll add some more labeling in there. I'll work with our tech team. And probably by the next meeting, I would have uploaded a new PDF, just FYI. I probably won't send it out. I don't know about you, but you might not want it. It might be nice for it just to live in the place that it's gonna live. Any questions before I hand it off to Gerardo? Yes.
More of a note. We never talked about plans, facility related for portables and how that affects the overall utilization.
I'll save that one for my esteemed colleague, Mr. Castillo. Thank you.
Before moving on, I just want to give some quick feedback, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But personally, for me, as I listen to the information and look at the numbers, and is it Steve? Steve, thank you for also bringing to my attention or to our attention about the way the graph is showing, because I was sitting here and I had no clue what things meant or what it was, but with further conversation, now I feel like there's a lot of information that's missing. And I'm really interested in hearing or finding out what Brandon was talking about, seeking other avenues about how we can come to some solutions with this. If that can be brought to the table as well, because I feel like that could help us with overall decisions. I don't know if that's something that we can do. But somebody had mentioned or made a comment about that there's 2 middle schools already in talks about joining. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if that's the case, then isn't that supposed to be brought to our attention, or shouldn't we be talking about that? yeah, so.
I could jump in for that. I'm pretty sure what that talk was the time when Pajaro Middle School was flooded. Lakeview and Pajaro were combined for the end of one school year and then an entire school year. So that was the reference that was made earlier when those two schools had previously been combined.
Oh, so we are done. Thank you for your time, and thank you everybody, the staff who prepared these documents. You're gonna
Well, there was a question raised for you.
okay. So the question regarding the Bill, you wanna help here regarding the portables? We have a topic for that. So it's coming up for the portables.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
No, I get it. My impression was wrong because I thought we were gonna get into it today.
Yeah. So that's kind of it. Yeah.
Will the MGT report be moved to the next meeting?
Yes, the data that we covered, and we will have to be organized ourselves so we can do some catch up. You have some
So yeah, a quick question on the facilities master plan. It doesn't really address also global warming and also other fire and natural risks necessarily in their assessment. So for instance, Pajaro Middle School, for instance, it is in a flood zone. Other areas and other parts of the school district are in flood zones. So, can we get either a report or something that you worked on to address natural disaster implications related to school sites and locations?
Yeah, we will find out. I believe floods, the flood zone is included, but I will find that out. I don't know the answer. I need to find that out. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. You can take those with you. Would that be more helpful or you want to put it? You want to collect it? Yeah. That's yours. Yeah, the binders are for you.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
You can take the binders, yeah.